So hi everyone, my name is Patrick Miner. I'm a software engineer at KRA. So today we'll be discussing something very interesting, and it's been a buzzword in the AI community for the longest, I think. So before we start this discussion, I want to talk about this specific architecture that we've been using for the longest as developers. So we have the client and the server, and the client maybe is a user using his phone trying to access a specific service. Let's say he wants to send money. Then we have a backend server, which is there to do business logic, maybe validate the balance, call internal databases, check his user information, and also you can see that the server is also communicating to two external services. So maybe it's calling another external gateway, and this relationship between the client and the server, there's a response and there's a request and a response sent back. And for most of us, we understand for APIs we have a standard called REST. So REST uses JSON as a data format, and HTTP, which is the protocol that allows communication between the client and the server. And we have these HTTP verbs that we use. We have get, put, delete, and put and delete. So these specific verbs define what is known as CRUD. You can create, read, update, and delete a specific service. So for this specific example, in context to what I'm explaining about model context protocols, I've created an event app application using Golang. So this specific application has the ability to create events, read events, or one specific event, update an event, and delete an event. And this is part of what is in the code. I'll just show it later. You can just see the specific routes and the specific HTTP verbs that we're using in this specific application. So the key question is, how do we expose our application capabilities in a standardized protocol to an AI LLM, a large language model? And most of you are familiar with these LLMs, the common one being ChatGPT, which took us by a buzz at the time. And the specific architectures below will kind of dive into the evolution of these specific LLMs and what they are doing. So LLMs, standalone LLMs used to be, they had the capability to just generate text. You give it a request, generates a response or an answer for you. Then 2 years again down the line, 1 year down the line, we had LLMs which had tools, the capability to maybe browse and do specific things, but they're also limited in their capabilities because yes, they will give you an answer and everything, but once you prompt it to give you, maybe send me an email, check my notifications, or do something, they would fail totally. And now we are in the third evolution of these specific LLMs. And now this specific third evolution has something interesting called model context protocol. And this model context protocol is the standardized protocol that we can use to expose specific resources to tools in the LLM. Like in this example, we can expose our API endpoints to an LLM and give it commands like list all events, and it will be able to collect those events by calling our APIs. So MCP acts like a layer of communication. It's a standard way in which these specific LLMs can access different services, and these services can be local or remote. So they can read our local file storage, databases, and APIs. It's not limited to that only. So so this architecture below here is what I want to focus on. So most of us know ChatGPT, yes. Cursor, programmers might know it. But in my case, I will use Klein. So Klein is interfaced with Grok, and this is what I'll be using to send my commands. So the MCP client is usually the user-facing application. Just a minute. So for this specific architecture, we have 4 components, right? The MCP client, which I explained, is the user-facing application. The protocol, which is MCP, is a standardized communication method. Then we have MCP server, which translates between the client and the services. Then we have the services, which are the actual tools, right? Like the databases and APIs, as I explained before. So why is this important? So what are some of the use cases we can use for MCP? So LLMs can use APIs as first-class clients. What does this mean? It means that the LLM is a client and is a primary consumer of the API or APIs. Secondly, this kind of protocol enables us to have a context-rich operation. Since LLMs don't just query APIs, they also bring business context into the conversation. So in the case of KRA, taxpayer context, we can send this command, check this PIN VAT compliance and file a return. Thirdly, they bring efficiency, streamlines integrations. How is this possible? So traditionally, we used to consume APIs. We have to read the docs, generate payloads before even testing and maybe deploying. But MCP allows us to integrate to an AI assistant, maybe a chatbot, to specific APIs. And maybe what are the possible MCP use cases for KRA with GavaConnect APIs? So GavaConnect APIs, these are 16, 17 APIs that were deployed by KRA recently. So we can just look at the portal for a minute. Yes, so discover APIs. So majority think of APIs here, KRA APIs. Yes. So we already have a rich API ecosystem. So I think developers, it's a challenge to us to create innovative ideas around this. Okay. So, the possible use cases for MCP. So here I'll look at 3 actors. We have first the taxpayer, KRA officers, and developers. So for the taxpayers, we can build something like a taxpayer assistant bot, which uses MCP to connect to taxpayer services like the APIs from GavaConnect. So from this bot, maybe a taxpayer can send a command like, what's my iTax filing status for this PIN? So the MCP-enabled LLM calls the get tax status endpoint, interprets it into JSON, and replies in English or Swahili, which is human readable, human understandable language. Secondly, we can have automated compliance monitoring. So this is for the second actor, KRA officers, right? And in this context, we have MCP integrating with APIs, maybe exposing compliance data, either VAT, PE, or excess duty. So KRA officers or businesses could query, show me all VAT registered suppliers who failed to file last month. So behind the scenes, the MCP model orchestrates multiple API calls, right? So maybe they call these specific endpoints, get VAT returns, and it should be able to provide a summarized report, right? And thirdly, for developers, I think developers are the one who are taking a lot of benefits from this. So like on the GavaConnect portal, where you have to maybe test your KRA APIs, you can use MCP to generate test payloads for filing a PE or something. So the MCP already knows the API schemas, so it generates a JSON payload and then runs it against the sandbox endpoint. So from here, I'll show a practical use case on what I've built. I earlier said I've developed a event app. So it's able to do this CRUD operation, create events, read events, update an event, and delete an event. So I want to use MCP, an MCP client, which I said I would use Climb. Send a command, maybe list events. So all these events are already seeded into the database and are already exposed using these APIs. So the main thing is I'll send a request, I'll send a command, list events, then the MCP server will handle the rest. And also we'll try to understand how this rich context is coming in. So without a further ado, let's do the demo. So this application is written in Go, nothing fancy. You can use any language of your choice. I think MCP has a variety of SDKs you can use. So for this specific example, I said I'll use Klein. Klein is now my MCP client. So for the MCP server, maybe I can just brush through the code. This thing is a bit slow. Okay, let me minimize a bit. So for this specific example, I've implemented this using the MCP Go library and server. You can see I've imported all the necessary packages. Then also for this specific example, we have a role-based restriction. You're either the admin or the user. So the admin has more capabilities. He has the capability to delete events. He has the capability to update events. The user cannot. And this specific restriction is implemented in my config. As you can see, the event app role is admin. So I've decided to go with full capabilities. And also token caching. This is more of authentication. Yes, this is authentication, nothing fancy per se. Login, the login functionality is there. So the key thing I would want us to see is the tools, right? Remember I said the MCP server allows us to access certain services using tools, right? So these tools are here. So we have the list event tool, the add event, create. I think we have an update event. As you can see, it's on the admin, and also finally the delete event. So this is a very simple use case. Yes. So let me just fire up the MCP client and see what is going to happen, right? And I think most of you developers have seen this before. Or to avoid coding. Yeah. So let me just put in the command, right? Very basic command, and let's see what happens. So remember, I haven't started the server yet, so I think the MCP client has the capability to do that because it has access to my CMD. So let's see what happens. So it's saying the user wants to list all events looking at the project structure, which appears to be a Golang based event application with an API server and MCP server. Yada yada yada. So it's able to infer, right, that there's an instance of an MCP server. So this is the command list events from event. Okay, yeah. So approve. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that should fail because the server is not yet up. So you can see the idea behind this. It's capable of thinking about solutions like a developer, right? So this command is to run. I think it wants to start the server. I think this is the wrong command. Anyways, let me approve. Let me approve. Yeah, it fails. So I think here is where, let me just kill this, remove that permission is dangerous. This is where I think having programming knowledge is very important. You cannot substitute your human intelligence to an AI easily, so you have to be there like guiding it sometimes. So let me just give it the command. Text. But yeah, we see what will happen. So this is the command to start the server. So just assume if you're in production, this won't be a problem. So this is, I'm just delegating. Cancelled. Run that first. Let's see what happens. Run the command. Which line is using this. So the model has determined this command requires explicit approval. Okay. So the server is on. So this part, as long as you live, that won't be, it won't be a problem. So don't worry. So okay, it's the same command: list events, approve. Yeah, beautiful. So you see the MCP server is able to call our API here. You can see it's able to call the authentication, gets a 200 success, then goes on and calls all our events, right? And you can see they're being listed here. So all these events are in the database, right? And it's quite interesting. So let me just give it more context. Let me say list all the events happening on the 25th December. It's taking a lot of time. I think the internet is a bit slow. Thinking, beautiful. So from the event list here are the events happening on December 25th. So there are 2 events, right? Yeah. So that is correct. It's working perfectly. Okay. Let me just test the commands that I used earlier. So since we're in admin status, we can delete an event, right? So say delete the event with ID 14, right? And maybe just to check the database, table form, table plus. So for this example, I just used SQLite. So table plus is just there to allow me to view the database for visualization purposes. Yeah, so it's here, connect. It's taking a lot of time. So events. So event with ID 14 is the API's hackathon. So that is what I want it to delete. So let's see what it does. So for this specific functionality, if you're a user, you can do it because of the role-based authentication that is in place, right? But for the MCP server, it has access because I'm acting as an admin in this specific instance, right? So approve. I think it's using the user use case. It's okay. Because I think the current build I used to use is still okay. You see, it's checking. It's checking the auth and everything, which is okay. So we'll cancel. So I think the user also has permissions to he has permissions to create a new event. So let me just create a new event. So create an event about MCP protocols to be held on December 12, 2025 in Nairobi. Yeah. So you see, it's able to understand that command, the human readable version generates a JSON version. So it's saying the name, the date, description, and location. So it clearly inferred my description. It's able to understand the schema that I gave it for this specific event. The event field in the database. Let me just show you. It has an ID, a name, a description, a date, and a location. Right. So let me approve and see what happens. So already we're getting a 2-on-1, a post. So it means it's successful. Yeah, the task is completed perfectly, successfully created a new event about MCP protocols, and here are the details. So let me see if it's been seeded into the database, right? So this is ID 23, name MCP protocol conference. Yeah, let's see. And copy 23. No, let me just refresh. It's exciting. Yes, it's here. So you can see the capabilities we can get from MCP servers. So lastly, let me see. Okay, this is interesting. So create an event with a wrong dates, and let's see. Curious if it'll detect there's something wrong with the dates, and also maybe I can create an event with missing details and see how well it understands the context. So create a new event about HTTP servers. Servers on, let's say, 78th November 2025. Let's see. Thinking, okay. So it says the user wants to create a new event. They said 78th, but that doesn't make sense. So it does the auto correction for me and creates the event. I think it's also inferred my location. I think the location, because I think based on the database, a lot of location is Nairobi. So let's just approve. See what happens. Yeah. 201 successful event created. It's in the database. Refresh a bit. Any events. Refresh. Let's refresh. Yeah. So you can see we have a new entry to the database. So you can see the gist and the idea behind MCP servers, clients, and what they can do basically. So yeah, that is it. Nothing fancy, but it's just a challenge to developers and also organizations. Maybe they can pick this technology, leverage it, and see what happens. So yeah, thank you so much. Catch up more. We'll catch up more on the same. Thank you.